So, if you're a radiology resident, the FRCR exam is probably a name you've heard a lot. But what is it really? What are they even testing you on? And maybe most importantly, where do you even start? All right, in this explainer, we're going to break down the entire FRCR exam pattern step by step to give you a clear roadmap from someone who's been there. You've probably heard it all, right? People say it's tough, that it's unlike any other exam out there, and that it's a total game changer for your career. And you know what? All of that is pretty much true. But here's the thing. Behind that big, scary reputation is a very structured process. And if you understand that process, well, that's the first step to actually conquering it. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. What is the FCR? We're going to break down what this qualification is all about and why it's such a huge deal for radiologists, not just in the UK, but all over the world. So, FRCR, it stands for Fellowship of the Royal College of Radiologists. It's a super high-level qualification that's run by the Royal College of Radiologists over in the UK. And you shouldn't think of it as just another test. It's more like the gold standard. It sets the bar for the entire profession globally. But why is everyone so obsessed with it? Why does it matter so much? Well, for one, it's recognized everywhere. It's kind of like a passport that opens up opportunities around the world. It's the main way to practice radiology in the UK, and it basically tells everyone, hey, this person knows their stuff. To put it simply, it is one of the most valuable pieces of paper a radiologist can get their hands on. I like to think of the whole thing as a three-part quest. Seriously. First, you've got part 1. That's your foundation. Then comes the big one, part 2A, which I call the theory beast. And if you survive that, you face the final gauntlet, part 2B. Each part is totally different and tests a completely different set of skills. You've got to be ready for all of them. All right, let's kick off our quest with part 1, the foundation. This part is all about the two absolute pillars of radiology, anatomy and physics. It's where you have to prove you've got that solid core knowledge that everything else is built on. So part 1 is actually split into two very different modules. First, you have the anatomy module. This is all image-based. They'll show you about 100 images, and you just have to identify the labeled parts. Then there's the physics module. This one's a multiple-choice exam, and it's all about testing if you actually understand the concepts. You know, stuff like radiation safety and how imaging works. So you're looking at two totally different kinds of tests on the same day, and you need a different strategy for each. Okay, now for the part of the exam that has, well, a bit of a reputation. Part 2A. People call it the theory beast for a reason. This is a huge written exam that's designed to see just how deep and wide your clinical knowledge really goes. So why this scary nickname? Well, Part 2A is made up of, get this, 12 separate exam papers. Yeah, 12. That number alone tells you everything you need to know about the insane amount of information you need to cover in the mental stamina you're going to need to get through it. Those 12 papers cover 6 main clinical areas. We're talking everything: cardiothoracic, GI, genitourinary, musculoskeletal, neuro, and pediatrics. They expect you to have a really deep, almost specialist-level understanding across the board. This isn't just about remembering facts. It's a real test of how you think clinically. So, let's say you've slayed the theory beast. You're not done yet. Now you face the final gauntlet. Part 2B is where all the theory goes out the window. This is where you prove you can actually be a radiologist, a practical, effective one, especially when the pressure's on. The first test in this final stage is the reporting session. It's designed to feel just like a real day at work. They give you a bunch of cases, and you have to write up formal radiology reports for them. Now, the challenge here is really two things. First, you're on the clock. You've only got about 75 minutes to report on 6 different cases. And second, it's about the quality. The examiners aren't just looking for the right answer. They want to see a well-structured, accurate report that's actually useful to a clinician, just like you do for a real patient. All right, next up is a test of pure speed and accuracy. It's called the rapid reporting session. And the whole point of this one is to see how fast and how reliably you can spot the things that are wrong. The pace here is intense. You're looking at 30 cases, mostly x-rays, in about 35 minutes. Do the math, that's just over a minute per case. Your mission is simple: normal or abnormal, and you have to be fast. This takes a sharp eye, a ton of confidence, and absolutely no second-guessing yourself. And then, the final piece of the entire FRCR puzzle, the Viva. It's an oral exam. This is where you sit down with a couple of examiners and just talk through cases with them in real time. They want to see how you think. And listen, this part is less about getting the one right answer and much more about showing them how you get to an answer. The examiners are going to push you a bit, challenge your interpretations, and really listen to your reasoning. They're looking at the whole package, your thought process, how you communicate, and how you handle yourself when you're on the spot. Okay, so that's the structure. Now let's talk strategy. Because honestly, knowing the rules of the game and where people usually mess up is just as important as knowing all the radiology. Here is the number one most important rule you need to know. You have to pass every single component on its own. If you fail one little section, you have to do it again. Now for the common mistakes. For part 1, the biggest mistake is treating it like a memory test. It's not. For part 2A, it's underestimating just how much stuff there is to learn. And for part 2B, it's not practicing those reporting sessions against the clock. But the one mistake that can kill you in any part of this exam, bad time management. It's a killer. So knowing all that, what does a winning strategy actually look like? How do you tackle this whole thing in a way that gives you the best shot at success right from the start? You know, it really boils down to one simple idea. Conceptual clarity is everything. I'm talking especially about the physics in part 1. If you don't get the why behind it all, just trying to memorize formulas is going to get you nowhere. And really, that idea applies to the whole exam. So what does a good timeline look like? Well, the smart way to do it is to get part 1 out of the way early in your residency. Build that foundation. Then use those middle years to really dig in and conquer all the theory for part 2A. And then save part 2B, the practical part, for when you've got some real clinical experience to back you up. The key here is not to rush. Build your skills one step at a time. It makes a huge difference. And that brings us to the big question, right? After all of that, is this whole journey even worth it? The answer is a huge, resounding yes. But it's worth it if you're committed, if you're consistent, and if you're willing to change how you study when something's not working. Because this isn't just about passing a test. The process of preparing for the FRCR genuinely changes how you think and work as a radiologist. So if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. The secret to passing the FRCR is all about a shift in your mindset. You have to stop thinking like a student who's just trying to pass an exam. You need to start thinking like a radiologist who is trying to solve a real clinical problem for a real patient. That right there, that's the secret.